Call the meeting to order. This is the regular council meeting, March 19th, 2005. And if you will, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for this evening, and thank you for all that are here and the good representation in our city. We ask that you be with us tonight, help us to make the right decisions. All these things we pray in your name. Amen.
It's always good to see a nice crowd here. And maybe on some of our other occasions as well. So, you're always invited, you know that. Okay. Once again, we have attempted to move this up fairly substantially toward the first of the meeting, but it will be just a few minutes before we get to the issue many of you are interested in. And I would say once again, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, or you'd be welcome. We'd probably take a little break to let everybody that wants to leave, and then we'll resume our meeting. But we'd love to have you stay till 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock. Or 9:30. Okay, we're going to have a presentation of some life-saving awards, I believe, here. I would ask Chief Mitchell to come forward and make those presentations. We are having a lot of those, thank goodness.
Good evening. We have 2 life-saving awards this evening that happened back on February the 18th. I'd like to call Corporal James McPherson and Officer Jason Patton forward, and Assistant Chief Steve Merrifield. As the mayor said, we've had several of these life-saving awards, same exact circumstances that I'm about to tell you about that happened back on February the 18th. Our officers were dispatched to 12 Lakeview Drive in reference to a 26-year-old male that was down in the residence, and family believed he was suffering from a drug overdose, unfortunately. Officers arrived, were directed to the family to a back bedroom. It was a very small area, and the officers had to get in there to him to actually try to pick him up, get him off the floor. His breathing was very labored. Fire personnel arrived, and between these officers and the fire personnel, they were able to give him what's called Narcan. That is a drug, a life-saving drug that now our officers, Canton Fire Department's been carrying, but our officers carrying them on duty through their training and experience. They're able to use the Narcan and deliver the dose along with the fire department to the male individual who came to. And as a result of those efforts, he's now alive, saved his life. So these officers being recognized, I also recognize the fire personnel, firefighters, but they were unable to attend this evening. So without further ado, this life-saving award will be awarded to Corporal James McPherson. And Officer Jason Patton.
but unfortunately for situations that we don't like, none of us like. But are we developing a more severe problem than what we might otherwise realize?
I would say that the drug heroin, which was identified here, opiate, has made it's going to seem more than it has been in years past. It really has come up in this area, but I do know the collective efforts through the Cherokee Narcotics and other agencies around fight the battle daily.
Well, is it because we catching more victims because of increased emphasis from both you and the sheriff's department? Or is it just the number of people who are participating in this?
Well, I think what you're seeing is heroin, the effects are so severe, and now it's more affordable to people that are addicted to it, but the results are so severe that a person will likely overdose if they don't measure out the amounts and things that they use. Plus, these days, we're finding that shipments of this stuff's coming into Atlanta laced with other things that are more potent actually than heroin itself. So that's unfortunate.
Last question, is anything that the council can do to help our Canton police force support the efforts that y'all are trying to do already?
Just next year, through budget, we'll be probably looking to get more of the training for our officers with this life-saving drug. And that's something that we'll be looking for next year. Our goal would be for all of our officers to have a full deploy through the agency. Right now, it's not, but that's something that we're looking forward to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will entertain a motion to consider approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes in the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. We have in your package the minutes from March the 5th. I think we should take these one at a time. Are there any changes or corrections to be made to those minutes of March the 5th? Okay. No, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Have a motion to say those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion.
I'll abstain. I was absent.
Oh, okay. Susan, please note the bill to abstain from that vote. Item B there says clarification and consideration to approve the February 19th, 2015 council minutes. There was a little bit of confusion about what was actually said in those minutes, I think. And I can't remember exactly how it went. You know, you had made a motion which the council wanted to add some kind of construction management.
It was with regard to hiring the architect. Yeah, we just wanted to be sure we got the wording down right because the advertisement had already gone out, I think. So it was just we knew what the intent was, but the words were not written correctly. And I may not have said them correctly, but we tried to clarify that, and I think we voted to allow that last time.
We voted to correct the minutes, but what apparently was the case is I think you had indicated something was in the minutes that it turned out not to be in the minutes, actually. That's what we were trying to correct.
Semantic was construction services was not really mentioned in the motion.
How would you define that exactly? I mean, I'm not sure exactly what that means. I think I know what it means.
It's the overseeing of the construction processes to meeting the architectural plans.
So are we, that would be hopefully included in the services that they provide, unless would be asking for additional inspection services.
That is correct.
You'd be asking for additional inspection. So they will include a certain number of inspections in their proposal, normally.
In their proposal, but they'll ensure that the plans that they have prepared are met in the construction process.
Okay, that should be part of their job anyway, I would think, but,
Well, not necessarily, because we do hire separate construction managers to manage that in process, and then they are then responsible for the meeting of the architectural designs.
so are you saying you're gonna hire a construction management company?
No.
Okay, I'm not sure that an architect would provide construction management services totally.
Well,
Isn't that two different things?
Well, yes, it is, and that's, I think I may even ask the question at the February meeting, to be clear about it. Architects don't always provide services beyond giving you plans. So when you're going out for bid, you needed to specify that you wanted them to provide the services of being the middleman between the owner and the contractor, and making sure that the contractor builds what was designed. They don't do that unless you pay them to do that.
that's right.
So I just wanted to clarify, because you were going out for bid, that you were getting to do that other function,
I believe that
whatever
is-
you call it.
Yeah.
And when they only called it an architect, that wasn't clear enough, and now it's clear.
Susan, is it clear to you?
It doesn't really matter until you get the bids. You want to make sure the RFPs do the right thing.
We don't have the RFP with.
The motion you made that evening did not include that language. I don't know how I can do a motion, and add language later. I mean, the motion is the
I
motion.
think what you could put is that there was further discussion, and it was clarified that, because there was further discussion.
But his motion that evening did
Right,
not
no.
include that
You
language,
can't
so I
change
don't
the-
know how I can go back and include it later.
Not in the motion, no.
Right.
You would just want to clarify the minutes that there was some
And
discussion.
I can do that, but I can't go, I don't want to have to go
Okay.
back and change those minutes, because that motion in those minutes is the motion that was made. You see what I mean?
Well,
I can do it in the next set of minutes that it was clarified. Can't go back, I don't think.
well, clarified that night. I think you could. The city council could vote to include in those minutes the clarification that occurred that night. It was right after the vote that we.
No, it was when they were approving the minutes at our last meeting, the minutes were February's meeting.
I'm just talking about the discussion about whether it was going to be included in the RFP or not.
Oh,
Happened
yeah,
that
yeah.
night.
Yeah.
And so we can add that there was a discussion clarifying that you're seeking the additional services from the architect.
Absolutely, but his motion was to change the
And I'm
minutes.
fine with, I agree with you on that.
Okay, then we're good.
No.
Everybody clear on that?
The minutes, his motion from the February 19th meeting cannot be changed.
Right,
The minutes for the February 19th meeting can be changed to add this clarification. That was the discussion about the clarification.
the discussion clarification was at our last meeting.
No. There was a discussion of clarification that night after the vote.
But there was. However, I can't change his motion. I do have that conversation.
But you can make note that that discussion did occur after that vote and
Well, if it's in there, you don't have to do
purposes.
anything, right?
Okay.
Okay, all right, everybody's clear on that now.
Yeah.
So I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes with that correction.
So moved.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Okay. All right. Now, as most of you know, we have a 10-minute public input period that sometimes lasts a little bit longer, but not always. And I would like to say that, as you know, the issue that is coming up tonight, had a public hearing was held on it by the Planning Commission. And at our last meeting, the City Council, in essence, held another public hearing because we allowed anyone that wanted to speak on both sides of the issue to speak. I would ask tonight that hopefully you limit your discussion to maybe anything new that would contribute to our decision. We have, as you know, heard from the Planning Commission, we've heard from many of you, we've heard from probably most of you in our emails and so forth, so we've got a pretty good dose of it, you know. But we do appreciate everyone's input and their concerns and sharing their opinions and thoughts on it. But we only have 3 individuals now. Is there anyone else that may have come in late that would like to speak on this or any other issue? This public input is not just for a zoning or anything that's coming up. It's for anything on our agenda or anything that's not on our agenda. Anything anyone wants to speak and talk to the council about, we're willing. Mr. Diller, you want to speak in a few minutes?
Yeah, just let it speak at the end of this.
Okay, yeah, I'll just put your name on here. Okay, yes. Okay. Okay. Well, now, we're not going to spend all night doing this, I gotta tell you, not this time, okay? So please try not to take more than 2 or 3 minutes, if you don't mind, and do that. We'd like to hear from you, but we've heard a lot, okay? Frank Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Frank Farley. I'm from 301 Skyland Drive here in Canton. I'm here both as a resident of Soleil. I am a member of the Appeals Board, but I represent tonight the Soleil Advisory Board. We'd like to advise the council that after the planning meeting and following the suggestions that the parties better communicate with one another, the applicant has engaged in discussions with the representatives of Soleil residents of the Soleil Advisory Board. Last evening, the CEO of SEC, in a standing room only open meeting with residents, presented preliminary plans for enhancing the amenities to accommodate the demand from the proposed annexation. Mr. Clark conducted an open discussion at the end of his presentation and appeared sincerely willing to consider the frank reactions he received. Several residents requested more open and timely communications, and Mr. Clark expressed a willingness to improve the flow of information to the residents. We are encouraged by the progress we think has been made so far. Nonetheless, the package presented was very preliminary, and there are still significant details to be developed by SEC and presented to the Soleil Advisory Board and Soleil residents. The added home sites requested by the applicant have the potential to negatively impact our property values and quality of life. An amenity package commensurate with the added homes is essential to prevent this. We very much appreciate the support of the City Council to help move this discussion to a satisfactory conclusion for the applicant and the residents of Soleil. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Good evening. Once again, thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Rock Creek Estate homeowners, communities of Puckett Creek, Whispering Hills subdivision, and also the people that live along Shoal Creek Road. I think if I read this, I can get this done about 1.5 minutes for you, so I'll get you out of here. Just to let you know, I spoke to council a couple of weeks ago to express our concerns about the added traffic that we placed on the roads from the citizens of Laurel Canyon. Well, nothing has changed. The roads are still dangerous, and added traffic would be a hazard to all of our local citizens. The attorney representing the developer expressed the same feeling at the planning board meeting in February. During the bad rains we had last week, a couple of cars nearly went off the road and into the guardrail along the bridge at Puckett Creek. There was nearly another incident with a school bus and a tractor trailer at the big curve. If the tractor trailer had not swung extremely to the right and into the dirt area, there would have been a serious accident along with the children of our community. We know that the citizens of Soleil need and deserve a second continuous entrance and exit from their community, but these two roads are not the answer. A road engineer hired by the developer also spoke at the planning board meeting concerning the amount of traffic that would place on these roads daily. The number was said to be an additional 250 vehicles per day. These numbers are based on the current Soleil population and not the future. With additional planned homes, that number would increase significantly. He also said that the cars would probably not be early morning or late afternoon traffic because the people of Soleil are retired. I agree about that, but what he failed to mention is that studies show that retired people with vehicles make more than one trip from their homes daily. This would actually make the initial study of 200 vehicles turn into 400 plus per day. Since the last meeting, I've been informed that the new plans for Soleil would bring homes right up to the proposed gate of Honeydew Drive. This would place new homes right up to the roadway and the local homes of the surrounding communities. It appears Soleil would once again be landlocked in another area for an alternative to the second exit, which we have already discussed as Old Shoal Creek Road. This would also disregard a promise that was made to the homeowners of Rock Creek Estates when Laurel Canyon was first started many years ago. We were told that there would be a 50-foot buffer of trees between the new development and the homes along Honeydew and Honeysuckle Drive. That later the trees were clear cut, and now today it's just bare and barren. When the trees were cut, we discussed with the people back why the trees were cut, and they said it was under a new ownership, and they knew nothing about the buffer and nothing about the plans that the initial owner had made. And I'm just guessing this is another point that was never discussed between the previous owner and the current owners. I'm not trying to split hairs, but what is right is right. I think our communities along with these three roads need to be heard and respected. Please hear us tonight, and please deny the use of Honeydew Drive and Shoal Creek Road as an access gate for the people of Soleil and Laurel Canyon area. Thank you.
Bruce Ayer.
Mayor, council members. Additional information I found out since our last meeting is there are 39 new homes chartered to go in the next 6 months, right off of Honeydew between Puckett Creek, point of Puckett Creek where I live, and that gate. Now, we have 41 homes that can be built in our subdivision, and the only entrance is on the Honeydew. So that's 80 houses times 1.7 trips a day. That's an awful lot of additional traffic, and I don't look forward to it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take you up on your 9 o'clock. I had a wonderful dinner at the new Thai restaurant, but I think I'll move out.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Dillard.
Mayor, members of council, I'm Doug Doe versus Teresa Torbenson, and we represent the applicant. I'm going to call Jay Clark first to let you sort of confirm what they've been doing in the neighborhood since our work session on the last meeting, then I'll close.
Good evening, Jay Clark. I wanted to get up here last weekend, but I didn't feel like it was going to be appropriate, so I kind of held back. But I just want to let y'all know the journey real quick. I'll be brief. We met with the HOA and/or we sent out a blog or something to that effect in, I think it was in November. And basically said we had a process to go through, and this relates to the amenity because apparently there's some perceived leverage being brought upon this body, in my opinion anyway. So we said we'll give some time, we need to do a survey, we need to hire an architect, and we did that. And we got the results, and we started planning. And we asked the advisory board to please keep it amongst us, because clearly you've seen what's happened. You know, you put out a partial plan, and then everybody starts thinking it's the final, this, that, and the other. So somebody that was given a copy of the plan put it out to the public, and then that's why you're hearing this subject matter come about. Well, we're not in April. Honestly, it took us about 2 or 3 weeks more than we anticipated, because part of the facility is a cooking, and we've had the cooking presidents involved, and we've had the garden club presidents involved. In conclusion to all that, we're still planning. So last night we had a meeting with the HOA. It was very clear where we were. I mean, it was a hand drawing of the layout amongst all parties, the advisory board, the cooking clubs, and so forth, how the cooking area is being laid out. So we're just early, and we explained that last night. People kept asking, well, how big is this? How big is this? How much is that? Again, we're still planning. We don't even know the site condition for sure until we actually draw everything out in CAD, like a developer does, You get a civil comes in there, understands how your sewer is gonna work, your power is gonna work, your water is gonna work. A normal is like you're building a house, but you're building a bigger house, it's a clubhouse. So I wanted to explain that. We're not through with the process, but I also want to be clear because I feel like I'm getting leverage improperly. We have done everything in an open book fashion with this HOA since we started. We budgeted $2.4 million as a deficit of the HOA, and so far as of the end of the year, we're at $3.3 million. So clearly, the ride of this to get this property corrected, so to speak, has cost more money because it's taken longer than we anticipated. We contracted, I think, 500 homes now in aggregate. I think we've closed about 440. And it's taken longer because when we bought in the end of '08, nothing really happened the first 2 years. So what I don't want to hopefully have happen, I mean, we've been voted one of the most successful in the nation. Not just Atlanta or whatever. I think we're 5 best-selling in Atlanta as far as a home community. And this just makes no sense. I mean, this is crazy. Because we don't sell homes, we have no cash. We have no cash, we can't pay any deficits, we can't build any amenity. It's not like we have a bank that has an open checkbook that all of a sudden we go to them and there's no more checks. The checks come from us selling homes. And it's gonna be a shame if we get delayed, deferred, whatever, for something we're still gonna get done right. Now, we're gonna make all this constituents and all no, absolutely, we're not gonna make, if we can get 55, 60, 65% happy, but you got a contingent, when you get 50% off percentile of the survey, and you're addressing that, you're not gonna necessarily, make everyone happy. So anyway, I'm done with that. One last point, and I'm moving. Relating to the access gate, I mean, the main access on a fire, life safety, whatever, is the parkway. And I understand that there's a criteria, but I would just offer, how logical is it? I mean, just because it's in writing and it's a requirement, why do you need that if it's not? No, but logically, why does that exist if when you have talking to all the life safety people saying the parkway is how we're going to access people? And I'm not trying to save money, I'm just, again, logic, so appreciate your time.
In addition to our constitutional notice, I think you're going to get a recommendation from Mr. Patton, which is okay with us. I think he's outlined the conditions pretty well. You know, the condition number 14 that came over from the Planning Commission regarding the road improvements and the new amenities, we've given you a letter saying that's not part of your jurisdiction. We don't think that's a proper issue for you to deal with. We appreciate the concerns of the neighborhood, as Mr. Clark has said. They've got to deal with that. That's not property for you. We think that the modifications that are submitted are correct. We have given you a list of those, and the Planning Commission, basically what the Planning Commission said was fine, except for condition 14. We're revising and the use and development restrictions in Pod 9 to allow for single-family detached dwellings. Currently, Pod 9 permits 60 single-family attached dwellings, so we're going to detach on that. Planning Commission recommended approval. We changed the number of lots in Pods 5 and 6 to reflect the changes in ownership since the master plan was revised in '05. That was approved by the Planning Commission. Transfer of density pursuant to condition 46 of the 2005 conditions of approval in Pods L1 through L11. The Planning Commission approved that. Relocate the existing gate and guardhouse entrance and the abandonment of a portion of Laurel Canyon Parkway. Planning Commission recommended approval of that. Then waive the 2 entrance requirements. We had originally asked it to be emergency access only. We have changed that to allow for full access for the citizens of Soleil, and we have also revised that for emergency purposes for everyone. In the case of emergency, that to be defined in cooperation with the fire, police, and emergency 911 folks. So that gate goes to full access rather than limited access. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we would ask that you approve these modifications.
Thank you. No, we're not on that issue at this point. No, that's public input. Won't be long. All right. The next item is the consent agenda, and the items to be considered for the consent agenda are as follows, and I will read them if anyone wants either one of them or any other of them removed for further discussion. Let me know. Item A is second reading and approval of the Growler ordinance amendment. Second reading, B, second reading and approval of request for alcohol license for, who wants to pronounce that? C-H-O-N and then N-G-E-R-N.
Silver Pearl.
Oh, okay, that's good. It's located at Highway, Marietta Highway, 269 Marietta Highway. And item C is approval of fiscal year 2013-14 year-end budget amendments. And these items are those items that we talked about extensively in previous meetings. And if there's none to come off, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Have a second. Any other discussion? Not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Under old business, we have discussion and action on the revised utility deposit policy. Mr. Cummings.
Yes, I'd like to respectfully ask for a motion to approve the revised utility deposit policy.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Susan, did you get both of those? Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Any questions? This is the one which is the possibility for refunding the deposits to homeowners who have and actually eliminating future deposits for homeowners, but not for renters, actually, or commercial. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank you. Okay. Item B, under old business, discussion and action on the MP Master Plan 1501-001, amendments to Master Plan for Lifestyles at Laurel Canyon. Mr. Cummings.
Yes, according to the UDC code, the Planning Commission has made a recommendation to council, and tonight, according to 5.08.05, I'm requesting either approval or denial of the Planning Commission's recommendations.
Do we have Mr. Rust?
I'd like to make a motion to deny but waive the 1-year waiting period to reapply.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite understand what we are doing here. We are, explain to me, Mr. Governor.
The Planning Commission has made a 14-point recommendation,
Right.
and it's up to this council by this meeting to do one of three things: either approve, deny, or table those recommendations.
It doesn't table require unanimous?
A table requires a unanimous vote of council, that's correct.
In doing this, is that in the conversation for tonight, or?
What it does is it allows, I guess, further discussion and clarification of the the amendments to the master plan and any ramifications thereof in Mr. Russ' motion. Would allow for us to clarify, and it also would allow the applicant to reapply in less than 12 months if he didn't waive that requirement.
Anyone else? Any discussion? His motion, Susan, would you restate his motion?
Made a motion to deny the recommendation and waive the 1-year waiting period to reapply.
Okay. Is
Does this mean, are we not gonna tell the applicant why we're denying it?
There needs, if I may,
Sure, go ahead.
there needs to be, from our perspective, some clarification. For example, should you vote to approve this tonight, we would be telling owners of property that currently aren't within the gated community that they are now going to become within a gated community, and we do not, as a city, have releases from all those property owners for to be included. i.e., I don't believe this council has the authority to instruct owners outside that they must join a homeowners association unless they have given this body a release or an acceptance of such joining. That's one of the things that needs to be clarified. For example, there may be other issues that you have, but that's an issue that I basically found. I have no releases that say that we can instruct, and I don't even know the exact number of property owners, but I know there's more than one. I do not have a release to instruct a homeowner in that outside of that community, or have you vote for that homeowner now to become a member of that community without that member concurring or agreeing to such joining.
Does that mean that they can continue to build and get permits?
That would be a council decision.
Well, but denying this, that's the reason I want to ask these questions now.
That's a separate issue. Actually, a separate issue.
That's actually a separate issue because part of the planning commission's recommendations was to deny
Yes.
permits in certain areas, but since since the motion, should it pass, denies those recommendations or doesn't accept those recommendations, there's nothing to stop getting building permits at this point in time. You'd have to go through other steps as a council to stop that process.
Another question, I'm sorry to take so long.
Go right ahead, ask your questions.
If the developer wanted to go ahead and build the second entrance, there's nothing we can do to stop it, is there?
I don't believe there is.
So if we were to tell, if they were to ask, and I surely would hope they would, is what is it we want to see in addition to the second entrance, wherever it may be? Are we talking about understanding or setting some, not guidelines, but setting some direction or suggestions, better said, as to what the amenity thing is? In other words, Mr. Clark said that they're still working on the amenity package, and this is what I would like to hear from Mr. Clark, if that's permissible. He said, we're just not there yet. We haven't completed the plan, and so my question would be, when can you complete the plan and bring it back in as yours?
That would be a valid question, but I think again, go back to the only issue that I can see from the council taking a vote to approve is that we don't have a release from all of the owners of those properties that are currently outside of that gate that have to be included inside. So I don't believe, and Bob, you can correct me from a legal standpoint, I don't believe this council could vote to include those owners with accepting the recommendations from the planning commission unless those owners have given indication that they are totally willing to be accepted into it.
Well, I know that, can't say for 100%, but I know one gentleman here who lives outside, and when he purchased his home, they were approached at that time to go give a release that they would join. And I don't know if that was done with every one of them or not. That might be a question to be answered.
And that's I think why Mr. Rust has made the motion, and I don't know the reason, but that's one of the.
This would give additional time to answer some of those questions.
But if they got their plan together and came back next month, we could hear it.
That's correct.
Sure. And they can still go ahead and they can get permits and continue to build and continue to do business just as they are. And if they wanted to, they could go ahead and construct a second entrance because we have no way to stop that.
I would not say that's necessarily correct. It may be instantaneously correct, but it might not be in a few meetings if the council decides to take other action.
From the standpoint, if I might, Mr. Mayor, from the standpoint of city management, that is a correct statement, but the council could instruct via vote to stop permitting anywhere. And then we would have to implement what was ever voted on by the council. You could by vote also determine that you don't want that entrance or whatever. That's outside of implementation. Right now, with the denial of this, they are business as usual as far as the city management is concerned. They come in and apply for a permit. We'll continue to issue a permit until instructed otherwise.
Any other comments?
So, as long as we're having this discussion, all these people came down to hear what's might be in the short-term future for them. Might not be appropriate, but I would like to hear Mr. Clark or Mr. Dillard to answer a few questions to make either us or the audience here feel better. Are y'all in a position to address those? And for Mr. Clark, I would like some type of...
We have had a public hearing on that. We've had two already. And we didn't, those questions apparently weren't answered, or I don't believe if there's still that many questions unanswered that we're going to get enough answers tonight.
Well, the one thing I want to hear is that when he said we're still under the development of what the amenity package is going to look like at the club. Now, I would think that you showed me some drawings the other day of some preliminaries of what it's going to do.
Yes.
What these people are concerned about. When can you tell us what it's going to be?
We told them last night. I mean, we showed them.
Well, that wasn't what Mr. Clark said.
Yeah, no, we showed them preliminary plans last night, and we told them that we would start actual construction in July.
But he said we're still in the planning.
I know, I mean, we're fairly close, but we can't say, okay, this is the final plan of what everything's gonna look like or how everything's gonna be out.
And you can understand these folks, they want to know where you're gonna be with this thing. And I don't know if y'all were able to answer them. It sure didn't sound it to me, but I wasn't at the meeting last night, so I'm out on that one.
I mean, we gave them the best presentation that we could because of, based on the information that we had.
How confident are you in that presentation? Would you be confident to do a performance bond on that?
I mean, not yet, because we don't know everything yet.
So we don't know yet. Would you come back next month and do it?
Yeah, we told the HOA last night that originally before, when we first started all this, that we would meet with them in April and we would have a complete plan. Now, we kind of, it's fallen behind probably by 2 weeks, so it might get pushed into May. But we're hoping to push for an April meeting to where we can say, hey, here's the final plan and here's everything that we're gonna do.
Well, in the meantime, I mean, business, you're gonna go about business because if we deny this, you're gonna build and build and build just like you would normally. And just come back, and I think we all are in favor of the many things that you're doing. And we just wanna make our citizens feel comfortable in that they're gonna get what they are hoping will get close. I agree with Mr. Clark's comment that you're not gonna please everybody. So I'm asking the council here, would April or May be okay with Mr. Dillard? Would that suit you guys? You can still be building.
No. Pardon? We only have 5 lots left right now to sell, and then our next development, if this doesn't get through, our next development wouldn't be ready until probably 2016, which is phase 3.
You don't have any more lots ready to pull permits on?
No.
So what's the rush?
The lots, I mean, we bought these lots, and this is what's next for us to build, because these are already ready. There's already 18 platted lots that we can go ahead and get started on once this is approved. And then after that, there's another 20 to 30 that are probably 45 days out of being ready. And then, you know, that keeps us going, and then we start developing raw land.
Anybody have any other thoughts or comments here?
We have a motion on the floor that we do need to deal with. I mean, if you got any more questions, you know,
I just wanted to
glad
try
to
to-
hear them, but.
Try to get to where this party's happy and that party's happy.
Sure.
Let me address the release. We do have a release. There's one person that lives outside the gate. We've got a release from that. We understand there's 2 other people, I think, in Pod 9 that would be affected. Otherwise, there would be no other releases required. And had we known that, we would have secured those. This tonight's the first night we've been told.
Go ahead, respond. In all respect, Mr. Dillon, I don't believe they can vote to, without having those releases in their hands, to put and take a piece of property that currently isn't in that development and say, you're now a member of that HOA. So that is one of the things that do have to be clarified.
Pod 9 hasn't been annexed into Soleil yet, so that's why we haven't gotten those releases.
Well, city, for example, Mr. Henry lives in that area. We have no release from Mr.
Mr.
Henry.
Henry has a release.
Yeah, but we have no release. This council has no release. Well, then you resubmit. The answer. Or if that's how they vote, I mean, I don't.
Grant?
I'd also like to mention that we received another packet just this afternoon, late this afternoon, that contained some omissions by the applicant on the amended conditions. Again, we haven't, and it was a fairly substantial package, and so, again, we haven't really had time to review this in great detail, and I think it's another reason to deny this, and again, the applicant can come back at any time, so.
Okay. All right.
Well, I feel confident that the citizens that live in Soleil are going to get their second entrance. As Mr. Dillard had made comments to me in a separate meeting, and I feel comfortable that they will follow through. And obviously, they're trying to move forward on their amenity packages, particularly addressing the club. I don't know how y'all felt about it, but I didn't hear a whole bunch about it. 1 or 2 emails. At this time, as long as we're not holding you up, I don't want to hold you up in building. And if we can deny this, then y'all come back.
Okay, any other comments?
I just wanted to make it clear, Mayor, that a yes vote, when you ask for the vote, yes vote is a denial.
Yes.
Vote to deny.
And if you waive the year filing requirement on the denial, so you're
Yes.
denying it without prejudice, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you also waive the refiling fees? Those are fairly significant.
That'd be a separate motion. I'll make that motion if you want.
Let's deal with the other motion first, and then we'll discuss that. Okay. All right. Any other
Everybody's
comments?
thinking again.
If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank
Do
you.
you want to do that now? Yes or no?
Actually, that probably should be, I hate to say that, but it probably should be on our work session, you know, because that is a different issue.
How much money we talking about?
I don't know.
You recall the amount?
Ken, how much, is Ken back there? Yeah. How much are the filing fees for this? $1,000? Maybe, I don't know.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $2,000.
Okay. 1,500 to 2,000.
Can we do that then?
Ken?
Just because it would, if they want to come right back at us, then they can.
I want to show good faith.
I don't have a
Is that-
problem with that.
Mr. Patton, is that a council decision, or can that be done within community development
No, I think we have
to waive those second fees?
That would be a council decision. The staff
Okay.
cannot waive fees.
Okay.
Jim, can I make a motion that we waive the fees for the reapply? Can I make a motion that we
Yes.
waive the fees for a reapplication?
Okay. Have a second?
Already did.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members vote for the motion. Thank you. The next item has to do with the,
C is a moot point.
it is sort of a moot point at this point, but I guess we must act on that. Discussion and action on resolution requesting abandonment of a portion of Laurel Canyon Parkway.
Well, we sort of denied that by default in the first motion by eliminating the planning commissions or denying the planning commissions.
If they come back, we might have to do it later.
It's on the agenda, you gotta do something.
It's on the agenda as a separate issue, so I think we need to do something with it. I think we need to go ahead and take it.
No, that takes,
I wouldn't table it and
Well,
the other night.
Make a motion to deny.
second.
Motion to deny and a second. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Let's take about 5 or 6 minutes, if you would, please, as you, those that desire to leave and not spend the rest of the evening with us, do so as quietly and expeditiously as you can get down the elevator. Thank you so much.
That's what I'm saying. They changed the site That's county on the other So, who do we assume if somebody has an accident? So the council is ordering us to go down that road. And even though it's just as dangerous to go down that road than it is the parkway. Right, that's the parkway. They see, the thing is they can't use the fire department and the police department as an excuse that they can go down. Because we don't have vehicles to go up and down there. We had That's going to dinner, but I'll see you in a second here. You guys sit up there. Mr. Willard. I don't want to read it. We're talking about Judy. Because there's so much property because outer property. That's all there's nothing more than
Okay, we're gonna get ready to start again. If you would, settle down a little bit, or move along, if you're coming out, so get out. I know the elevator will only carry so many at a time, but we need to go ahead and move forward. Okay. Item D, action on irrigation meters, base monthly charge, or reconnection fee, Mr. Cummings?
Yes, I'd like a motion to raise the reconnection fees on irrigation meters from $25 to $50.
So moved. We have a motion, do we have a second? Okay, any other discussion? All right, if not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. All in according to the motion. Action on street light approval authority, Mr. Cummings?
Yes, I'd like a motion to allow Department of Planning and Zoning to coordinate and approve streetscape and lighting plans in the Canton overlay zone.
So moved. We have a motion and a second. Sure.
That mean that, if I understand this right, this hospital,
It has nothing, it is Hospital Road, or Northside Cherokee Boulevard. The issue that we had is that the language is ambiguous as to whether the decision belongs to the Department of Planning and Zoning, whether it belongs to the planning or the Zoning Board of Appeals, or whether it would require council. And I'm just trying to clarify the language so that when the lighting comes forward, to my mind, or to my opinion, it should be done within the Department of Planning and Zoning, and that would be then up to council to something to either concur or not.
in my opinion, I would think it'd be something the council want to vote for because it's being paid for with taxpayer dollars. We're making the decisions of how we spend it. That's just my opinion. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
No, these items are something that they are actually paying for. We'd be paying for we'd be paying.
I'm talking about the power.
Oh, yeah, power we would have to take
power
over.
is paid for by the city, that is correct.
I guess my only concern, and I'm not too concerned about it, but, does this in essence allow staff to grant a variance to our ordinance? And if it does, I got a problem with that.
Well, this is an overlay, so it's a zoning ordinance, not a development ordinance, not a development regulation. But that's the point, that the ordinance, the requirement of who can make the change was in the plan itself. So
Can they change something that is counter to our ordinance that calls for certain facilities or?
none of this was counter, I mean, this was all, if I understand it right, all of this is in the plan for Canton Marketplace, not in ordinances, but in the master plan for Canton Marketplace. Is that right? Do I have that right?
It's a requirement to comply with the community overlay standards.
Which is an ordinance, not,
Yes.
that's not applicable to, okay. So we have an ordinance that talks about community overlays.
Yes, it has some standards for street lights.
So our ordinance, I was wrong, our ordinance is ambiguous. I thought it was the master plan for Canton Marketplace that was ambiguous, but the ordinance itself is ambiguous.
There's language in the master plan approval that says planning and zoning department approves the lighting plan.
Right.
Anybody else got an opinion?
I guess the answer to your question is, yes, it's a variance, but the point may be that they're very minor variances that the city council at the time allowed the staff to make.
Anyone else? I'm sorry.
If we
Frank.
approve this authority, it's citywide, not just this.
I would take this to be only this issue.
Is it only?
Street light, only the street light issue and nothing else?
That's what I take it.
It's only in the Canton overlay zone.
And only for street lights.
Yeah, yeah.
And only the street lights?
One road.
One road.
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody have a problem with that? I think that'd be, that's the only thing.
There may be others in the future, but at this point, it's just street lights.
That's correct. That is the only issue, is street light with the north side of Cherokee Parkway.
Mr. Goodley does make a good point there, that there could be a substantial difference in the amount of power consumption from one type to the other. I would certainly like to ask that you be conservative in that
Well,
decision. You know,
We're gonna look at the entire.
make sure you got adequate light, but not too much power usage, hopefully.
That's right, you gotta do cost benefit.
And that was part of the initial information provided to mayor and council with some of those cost factors and what we were looking at in regards to a reduced long-term operations and maintenance cost on behalf of the city.
Right. Okay. Grant?
Since the comment made that there could be more overlays in the future, would it make sense to limit this authority to this overlay
Well, it is.
only?
I think the motion is limiting to it.
So if there's another overlay, they'll have to come back.
They'll have to
We'll
come back again.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're gonna-
For the Canton Marketplace.
Really? I mean, the motion is to allow them to make a street light approval decision.
On any plan that comes in.
Well, no, it's limited to Canton Market.
Canton.
Oh, okay, that's what I was asking, Canton
Remember
Market.
how this came up?
I did.
Northside said, these lights are gonna cost a whole lot of money. We'd like to do these lights. And the question was, are we gonna make them go get a variance, or is the city council gonna decide, or are they gonna decide? That's all that happened.
Any other questions, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second, I think, right? John, you made the motion?
Oh, there's a flip-flop, I know.
Susan, who made the motion and the
But,
second?
but
I didn't restart my recording, it doesn't say.
Oh.
Well, I think.
Okay, I would entertain a
we
motion.
had-
change whatever was said.
We had two people make the motion. I
is-
generally have the first person who says make the motion, it's the motion, and the second person who says it is.
Okay, was that,
I-
Mr. Russ, and
Mr.
just,
Mr.
Okay, there we go.
did you do that?
Good with me. Fine with me.
Yeah, I'll.
He did, he did, okay. That's all right.
He did it, whatever.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anything else? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank you. Item F, action on engineering strategies, Inc., change order number 1. Mr. Cummins?
Yes, the last time I brought to you a change order, trying to get the date of when this was approved. It's a change order to ESI for design services. The original contract did not include design services, but had the allowance for a scope change, and the scope was voted on, or to allow them to do designs on, looks looks like 5/15 of last year. And they have done those designs, and the cost they have incurred was not to exceed 200,000. It was actually 199,798, I think. You know, everybody says it's so close, but I think they did not bill for some hours that they had to put into it. I feel it's the proper way to do it is through a change order to this contract. I could have kept it out of council because we have a demand services contract with that engineering firm, and since council approved the actual task of doing it, I could have just gone ahead and proceeded to pay it as a task on a demand services, but I think the proper way or the better way is to include it within the project and show it as a change order. So I'm asking for you to approve that, doing that.
Mr. Russ?
Could I ask Mr. Cummins one question? Glenn, isn't this change ultimately, didn't it save us almost $400,000?
Yeah, and there's our other things that are coming, the other changes that are other cost savings that we haven't itemized. But correct, I think it was $447,000 in actual oversights that we found by doing the revised design. We presented that spreadsheet last meeting.
Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Have a second? Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions, comments? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay, now this next item is second reading and action on the nuisance ordinance amendment. Mr. Huffman?
Well, I'm going to yield any questions to my beloved city attorney who sits next to me.
Just to get everybody on the same page, this ordinance is needed if the city wants to fix, abate nuisances, and put a lien on the property to recover the money. Because all it does is copy state law for the procedures that are required to be able to put a lien on the property. We had that ordinance, but it wasn't in compliance with state law.
Okay, so the definitions and all are directly from state law?
Yes.
It seems, I've got a number of questions, but I guess they would not be relevant if that's state law, because.
Well, but the standard is,
question.
I don't know which definition you're talking about, but I mean, the standard for the court to decide is whether it's unfit for human habitation or for commercial, industrial, or business use and not in compliance with applicable codes. That's probably as objective as you can get on that. Now,
One question I would have is, what is the applicable code? And now, I see in there that it says something about 1991 codes, and then it says it applies to any code at the time the property was constructed. I'm just not sure what applies. I mean, can we take a 1995 house, would they have to meet the 95 codes or the 91 codes? I guess.
No, it's the reverse. You would apply the least restrictive code, the one in existence when it was built or the later one.
Okay, least restrictive. Okay.
Or you apply the one that was in existence when it was built, which over time is going to be less restrictive.
Right.
They get more restrictive, not less, with time.
But what does the 1991 mean? What code does that mean? What's that in there for? That's on the first page there, so.
I know, I think that is when the state adopted building codes. Is that 91? I think that has something to do with state adoption of codes. That doesn't really have anything to do with.
Ken, do you know what that has to do with?
1991 is when the state adopted a state building code, and so the law accepted from the required code anything that was in existence prior to that. So this is saying if we still had a code that was prior to 1991, it's legal, and so it has to be referenced.
Okay.
But don't they have to bring it up to code, say if they sell?
No.
They don't have to bring it up to present code?
No.
Only unless they're going to be doing some renovations and things of that nature that affects a portion of the house. They would have to meet the electrical requirements, of the
Yeah.
plumbing requirements.
That's what we would do today anyway,
Yes,
right?
sir.
That'd be the case today.
Mr. Dyer, I believe is correct, 91 is the year that the state of Georgia, through the Department of Community Affairs, adopted state building codes. There were codes that were enforced prior to them, but those were under the auspices of Southern Building Code Congress International, which is now the International Code Congress. All these regional agencies combined into the ICC.
Okay, let me add, I mean, if this is out of the state law, some of these, like I said, may be irrelevant, but why does it say drug crimes and not others like sex trafficking or prostitution if something is going on that property?
I think it's a meth house. It's dangerous.
Okay. And a question I would have too would be, does there have to be a conviction in order to take over a property where there was, someone believes there was drug crime going on there? Or can they do it just because the officer saw someone and suspected that?
Well, if you're getting into the forfeiture statutes, that's sort of an issue nowadays. You don't have to have a criminal conviction at all under forfeiture statutes, but that would be different than what we would be doing.
Okay, it's interesting. Why does it say that dwellings or buildings as per defined means such things as outhouses, but not a chicken house? Does that make sense?
I don't know, that's from state law.
That makes sense then, okay, I got you.
It's only Georgia.
And I did ask the question, I think beforehand, upon the complaint of 5 residents or some public authority, can an officer inspect the interior of a home? Can they go into the home, or do they just have to look on the outside and?
That's an issue anyway. If we just wanted to go give them a citation, we had that same problem. But whether we can go in or not, they typically get search warrants if they really want to.
Okay. Another item I would have, and I don't want to take all out of this, but if a repair can be made at a reasonable cost, who defines reasonable? What is the definition of reasonable?
Well, it's in the ordinance, I thought.
Okay, good. I missed that one.
Yeah, I think it goes on to define it. It's determined.
Percentage of damage to the property, the value or something?
Yeah, I can't remember what it says, but there is some further explanation. I don't know that it defines it, but reasonable cost, cost of, I mean, it can take into consideration of income and financial status. I mean, I think it just gives some guidance without a definition.
I didn't see that, and I just wondered who would make that determination, what reasonable cost was. Another item.
The judge would make the determination, because that's what the judge is having to decide, is to order to fix or to order to demolish.
It says abatement action, once this has been brought to the attention of the authorities, must begin within 270 days, or that's 9 months, after the expiration of the time specified in the order. In other words, you give them so much time, and then if they haven't done it, you, I guess, give them another thing, and they've got another 9 months to do it.
No, we have to do it within 9 months. It's an imposition on the city. We can't wait more than 270 days to do it ourselves. That's what that's about.
Okay, abatement action for us must begin within 270 days.
They're given a deadline. They don't do it. We now have the right to go do it.
Okay.
But we can't wait 3 years and then show up at their doorstep. We have to do it within 9 months.
Okay. Any salvage materials can be sold without a public bid. I mean, that leaves things a little loose ended there to me. I mean, you know, but I mean, that's what it says. That's what it says. That's about all I have. Anybody have anything?
We going to take a vote on this, Gene? I mean, it says
Well,
possible action.
Second reading, if we want a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion, do we have a second? Second. A motion is second, okay. Any other discussion?
Well, I think we need to approve this because I named him Hooky the Blight Destroyer, and without this, he doesn't have any tools to work with, so.
Well, I think we need to too. I know there's still
Stop picking on-
questions in my mind, but if it's taken from state law, I mean, there's not much we need it in order to enforce what we need to
Yeah,
do.
the county's doing something right, so we just need to follow their lead.
I think the reality is you would probably only, you're spending money. So you're only gonna do it in cases where the building needs to be torn down and it's obvious that it needs to be torn down.
I'm just curious where we stand on hiring our extra code enforcement officer. Already hired.
Is Randy retiring next month?
I don't know that he's submitted any.
Oh, okay.
Officer Johnson.
It's several months off, I'm just trying to talk about it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members vote for the motion. The next item is a little different animal here. The second reading and action, possible action on Community Redevelopment Tax Incentive Program Ordinance. Okay, Mr. Attorney, I guess you want to.
I'll try, this one is completely,
I'm not sure.
well, this is a completely different animal and it would be a separate process. This is if you don't want to spend city money, for instance. The other option would be to declare a property blighted, and it's defined in the ordinance. What you have to, there's a list of factors, and if you have two of those or more, I can't remember, graffiti is one of them, I know. And, then you would raise taxes on the property until they fixed it. Once they fix it, then there's actually a reduction of taxes, the millage rate on that property. The things that you would be deciding is how much to raise it and how much to lower it, and
Would that be the judge's decision?
No, because the judge is involved in this one, that's the other difference. This is, the city manager would decide whether it's blighted after giving the notice and a hearing, and they can appeal to city council. So you would be involved in the decision about whether a property constituted sufficient blight to require the taxes to go up.
But that would be the appeal process, the way I read it.
Yes, the city manager would make the first decision.
And I didn't read where it was but I didn't read where it was a variable amount. I read that it is 7 times.
It is not variable. You're deciding, meaning you're deciding when you pass the ordinance.
Yeah.
Is what I meant.
Yeah.
But those were just numbers I picked up from the.
It just
city of
creates
Ackworth.
a negative incentive for keeping the property in the condition that it's in.
There's not much of the carrot in that with.
How much administrative difficulty would this be to deal with?
Well, the code officer's going out anyway to locate those blighted properties, pretty specific of what qualifies in it.
Yeah, I understand that, but I guess I'm talking about the administrative part of the record keeping and knowing, you know.
Parcels for, which has the reduced tax and which has the increased tax.
Which doesn't, how much, and.
There is an administrative end to it.
How many years and all that they're gonna be.
Gene, isn't it a good idea to just have one more quiver in the bowl, if you will, to use if we need it? The likelihood of using it is slim. You'd rather use the other method, but you know there might be a rare instance where you'd be able to use this one, and that's when it might make sense.
So this is you get a choice, whatever you want to do if you got.
Well,
Yeah, here's the way I would envision it working, is that before we get anywhere, we have had so much involvement with these property owners, if they're around. We've talked to them, we've given them a chance before we even cite them, before we even start anything. You may have a property where they just can't afford to fix it. I mean, we had one down on Crystal Street, a church back there, and they just couldn't do it. They didn't have the money. This would be a tool to let you give them a plan with a deadline for doing it, and then you raise their taxes, and you collect that money, and eventually you might be able to help them do it.
But wouldn't a simpler process be for the city to go in and make those changes and then put that lien against that property?
Might be.
To me, that seems the simplest way.
And the property owner may prefer that.
And they might, yeah, I mean.
And we could do that.
Because that doesn't have to be paid until you sell the property.
And you could do that.
Another way of.
We could do that now, I think.
Yeah.
I think, City of Ackworth adopted this because they had shopping centers they were dealing with. blighted shopping centers. They were dealing with bigger, more valuable properties. I can't see doing this to a homeowner. But you might have some commercial properties where it would be worth doing.
Well, you made a good point, Jim. What happens if you had a property where people, really, the bulldozer is not the best answer, yet the people don't have the money? We come in as a city and make those changes, and then tax them to get it back, raise the tax to get it back.
Well, no, you put a lien on it and you get it when they sold the property.
A lien, but could you raise the tax and then reduce the lien?
Because it's already fixed.
But you take the lien away as they pay it back.
No, because there'd be two different processes.
Yeah, okay, so it's too complicated, okay. Gotcha.
Anyone else on this? I know we don't have a motion, do you?
I'll make a motion to pass.
You have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion with the exception of Mr. Goodwin, voted no. Okay. Next item, discussion of the Heritage Park, the Bowling Park Trail, Mr. Huffman.
Yes, sir, thank you. These maps were put on our desk in front of us, and thanks to whoever put that on. I suspect it's the little gentleman in the back by the name of Patton, but thank you, Ken.
Dan Owen out there.
Dan had something to do with it?
Dan,
yes.
So I didn't have time to put a letter with it.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dan. But it's showing the proposed trail of connecting both Heritage and Bowling. And the reason we're bringing this up, we discussed this briefly last meeting when we showed the revisions or proposed revisions of Heritage Park. And during the conversations that up and down the hallway downstairs, some of the people saying that it probably would suit the city better rather than going about improving Heritage Park first would be to connect Bowling and Heritage would bring a better return or offer more than just in doing the improvement. And what I saw in the improvements of Heritage Park was a lot of trees, and they stuck up in the corner they had to stick it up that way because of the elevations of the various courts, which the person who was doing that study probably didn't realize how much space we had over at Etowah Park. But with that said, I went down and talked with Mr. Patton about how to go about doing this, and if we could reapply for the 100,000, 140,000 or 104, I don't get the number. 100, I believe it was. Yeah, if we could reapply for that grant. And he said, well, yes, we could, if it's still available, and he suspected it probably would be. But before we do that, they're going to ask us for an engineering drawing. So that brings us to why I'm here, or bringing this up, is that we got to do this before we even apply for that grant or any other grant. So I think, Ms. Cummings, correct me if I'm wrong, we possibly have the money to go ahead and do an engineering study. We can't build a park this fiscal year, but sometime in the future we may, but we must have the engineering first.
I really need to get a cost on the engineering study. One of the reasons it was rejected the last time was because it was a concrete pathway underneath the power lines. Correct. And we just felt that it had to be moved. So we would have to do a complete engineering study, which could also include getting easements. Isn't that correct, Bobby? Because
it's not as part of the study, but it will tell us where to get them.
It would tell us where to get them.
Once you have a engineer drawing, we know who to go talk to.
I don't know what the cost of that study would be, but we could sure find out and try and come back with some idea for the April work session.
And in doing that, Mr. Cummings, although they're not my favorite after working out at Etowah Park, HDR has done a study. We can't use all of it because it doesn't really go the path that we probably need to go, but we can use some of it, which maybe be at the entrance of the park and the exit of the park, but somewhere under the power lines. I think we're going to have to probably change it. Bobby, you probably know about that exactly the outline. I have yet to walk it, so I don't know, but anyhow, we do have some study already done. And how much they can use over, whether it's 10% or 50%, I don't know.
I don't know either.
But my point is to bring to the council is that, in looking to the future, it's gonna take us a couple of years, or maybe hopefully a little shorter, to get underway. But we gotta do the engineering, and I wanted to try to get that in this fiscal year done. So next year, we might be able to go out and start looking for some grants and maybe put some more into the budget.
Try to bring back something for the April work session, although Thursday's our deadline, which was today, so I don't.
Right. Well, I think that's a good idea. I think we, at a minimum, need that plan laid out there in a specific area that's going to be covered, where it's going to go, or where we would like for it to go for sure. To lay it out there and have it on a piece of paper. I mean, we may not be able to fund the construction, but I think, we need that at a minimum. So, I mean, if we can ask our staff to go back and see if they can find whatever the cost is and where the money would come from to do it, and report back to us. I think that would be what we need to do there. Jack, you have something?
Yeah, first I want to say thank you to Mr. Owen for all the years of hard work over there with the Scouts and all the stuff he's done. I've met with him, and I think Mr. Russ, some of the others may have gone as well and walked that trail, but I want to ask him, since he's sitting here, if he had anything else he wanted to add to it, because he's spent tremendous amounts of time over there.
Years.
Well, I understood from the HDR plan that I gave you a copy of, there's one note on there that the pathway had to be aggregate because it was in floodplain, and it was a state or some sort of requirement. I know the Corps of Engineers requiring aggregate only in Bowling Park. So I don't know if there's some other requirement.
No, you can't. That's our problem with the.
Can you put concrete in a floodplain?
Well, you can, but.
We've got it all over already.
But
It's in Heritage Park.
Yeah.
But the construction of that concrete pathway has specific.
The base.
The base and the thickness of the concrete, I also believe.
But that's, I mean, when we, 2-3 years ago, when we started the motion to do this, I mean, the choices you have to make are, you're gonna put some under the power line and have heavy trucks driving over it. And I think everybody's thought was, well, we don't wanna do that. And so then if you're moving it over closer to the river, if you've been back there.
In a floodplain.
Well, all that's in the floodplain. Until you hit the bank, it's, I mean, and so the cost was gonna go way up because now you're crossing several gullies and drainage ditches. And so you just have more bridges. Because if you've been down there and envisioned it, you're shifting it, you're making it harder. So that's just a choice you've got to make, is do you want to be under the power lines, and is there some kind of material you could do that Georgia Power could live with, that you wouldn't be replacing all the time because trucks are driving on it? And do you want bicycles to be able to go on it? Do you want people with strollers pushing their kids to be able to go on it? Those are choices you have to make, and we've just never got to the point of you making those choices.
I would think that maybe at those gullies and everything, that we could build a, treated lumber type bridge over it, as opposed to trying to put any kind of pipe or anything like that, or even any concrete.
That's exactly what I'm talking, but there's several of those, and that's an expense. And that's more than just running a gravel path under the power line, which was sort of everybody's initial concept. That it would be easy to just go under the power line with a gravel or stone path. But then you've got to decide, is that what you want, or do you want people to be able to push strollers and ride bikes on it?
I think the latter might.
Well, and so you've got to get to the point of having the engineer look at it, come ask you the questions they need to ask you. You make the choices you got to make, and it'll draw it.
We got so much concrete path between Heritage and Etowah Park for strollers and those type of things on concrete that, as well as we got some down in Bowling too, that we could probably get by.
You want to go concrete the whole way.
I mean, if you don't, you're
That's
going
gonna
to be
make it a
replacing that stuff all
draw.
the time.
You're gonna have people coming into town all over the place. If you have a concrete path all the way from Heritage, from Etowah to Bowling.
It was planned to be concrete, but it was on.
No, it's people with their small children. If y'all go out and look at Etowah now on a weekend and see how many people are out there with their little kids on their bikes at Heritage. That's who will be driving.
So, Mr. Cummings, we'll do something for the April meeting?
we're gonna try, because the deadline for submission to the agenda is a week from today. So we'll try and get something on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Russ?
I just had one question and then a comment. The question is, the $100,000, was that federal or state grant?
I believe that's federal money, isn't it Land and Water Conservation Fund?
Yes, sir, that is federal money that goes through Georgia Department of Natural Resources. That grant is in October with applications in September.
Thank you. The other thing I just wanted to comment, I went out and walked it with Dan, and I guess the thing that shocked me the most about it favorably is that I was so impressed with the topography. It was so flat. There was very few spots that were really hilly. The one big challenge is that one right behind the apartments where there's a big drainage area. And putting a bridge across there would be real tough because first of all, the bank looks pretty soft. You're gonna have to put 20 feet longer on each side to keep the bank.
No, and that HDR original plan, that's what they did. They engineered that, they did that bridge.
Yeah, and that's where the big number is. That's a big.
Well, that was almost, it wasn't all of that $600,000, but it was a good chunk of it.
Yeah, but when Dan and I looked at it, it looked like there's a way, not too inconvenient, where you could run it real close to the fence that backs up to the apartments.
There are probably lots of ways.
Well, that's
what the
the only
engineering
kink
report
in the
should
road.
do.
That's the only kink that I saw.
Well, down at the other end, you've got to decide where you're going.
Yeah, I know,
Which
under the bridge, yeah, but I guess the thing I came away with is it looks really doable to me, so I'd sure be in favor of going out and spending a little bit to try to get some funding.
I know if we need some strong backs and things like that, I've had several people contact me from looking for community service work.
Mr. Grant, you had something?
Have we approached Georgia Power to see if there's any funding opportunities there, grants, or was that, I believe I read some Gainesville or somewhere Georgia Power had partnered on a trail system.
Yeah.
Could be
It's a good thought.
Or a hospital, go to the hospital.
Dan's been around longer, he might know. Has Georgia, you've been involved with Georgia Power to see if there's any support that could be given there? Have you had that?
No, not from that. We talked to them way back when we first started, because we were gonna be on their property.
Right.
And they were fine with doing it, and it sounded like they would give easements or sell the strip or whatever needed to be done. The thing that I was thinking, they put the new power line up there, so I'm thinking there's probably not gonna be too much heavy truck traffic until all those lines have to be redone again. There's not much maintenance, I don't think, on the track.
The day I went out there with a group to walk them, the chief was out, Chief Floyd was there, 3 trucks came out.
Georgia Power?
Running down their easement.
Big heavy
No,
truck?
you would have to check, those are major lines, they do more routine maintenance than just.
Are they heavy duty?
Oh, yeah, those are big old trucks.
Well, you do have room between their roadway under the power line and away from the river.
That's the point. Somebody needs to go out there and see which the best way to do it.
Hopefully you can be involved in that too.
So is Glenn gonna go down and see if we can get some?
We're gonna look into this.
Okay.
I just don't know that I'll have it done a week from today.
Okay, let's move along here. City manager report, you have anything else to report?
The only thing I can say is that I hope we have the acoustical problem downstairs south by the end of April. We're gonna be putting panels up and.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, we won't be
have-
able to hear the complaints.
We will.
We won't hear the complaints.
Under the mayor's report, I have a couple of things here. One, we have a proclamation which has been signed that basically declares April 2015 as Autism Awareness Month and April the 2nd, 2015 as World Autism Awareness Day in the city of Canton. To raise public awareness of autism and the myriad of issues surrounding autism, as well as to increase the knowledge of the programs that have been and are being developed to support individuals with autism and their families. So I think certainly we have to keep people in mind that suffer with this situation here, and we are requested to have a resolution, which we have done and provided to the organization. Another item is that we're going to have a program dealing with, we're going to ask our youth to submit proposals for the facilities that they would like to see in Heritage Park. You know, we have a plan, and we showed some things that you could have, but we need to get their input. It's going to be your park and your design. The City of Canton wants to hear from our youngest residents, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Spread the word. We want you to want to know what the children think regarding Heritage Park. It's going to be a contest. Have your child draw up their park design, and they could be selected to have their idea implemented into the master plan of Heritage Park. I mean, if, you know, and council would actually make that decision from what we receive. And this is for anyone, you know, 18 years of age or younger. Okay. It says it's really simple. Grab the crayons, markers, chalk, anything really, and let them draw their design. Once they have completed it, they can mail it into the City Hall here, or they can drop it off between 8 and 5 weekdays. I wouldn't come too late on Friday because they might miss everybody, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that. Our youth represents the future of our city, and it's vital that we create a place for them and involve them in the planning process. So hopefully we can get some entries here and get a little media coverage, and I believe this is also on our website, so hopefully we'll have some people interested in doing it.
Please repeat the deadline.
June 3rd. I'm sorry. I didn't repeat it. I just didn't say it. On June 3rd, the city staff, mayor, and council will select the winner.
And you gotta be under 18.
Gina, I have one question.
Yes.
Are they going to be given any guidance about the areas that we can work with? Because we got a floodplain there, we got some real serious restrictions.
Probably. No, we're not going to give them
that would probably be
counterproductive.
That would be counterproductive. But I think the frustrating thing, if somebody gives you a real great idea and you can't really use it because it would be in the floodplain. You know what I'm saying? And
I understand
I
what
don't
you're
think we
saying,
want it.
but we do have a little area outside the floodplain.
No, I know.
We may have to figure out if we can make that
I'm not
work.
trying to throw water
Don't
on
make
it,
this
but
complicated.
If it's
No.
a good idea, we don't put it
no,
on.
but we might end up selecting the best idea that we can't use. That's all.
I understand.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find a place for it if it is good. Anyway, somewhere. I also had mentioned, you know, we had some committee appointments and we've had some slots and open, and I want to announce that at least at the work session, I'm going to, Jane Cordery has volunteered to serve on the Tree City Commission. So it'd be my nomination for Jane to occupy one of those positions on the Tree City. Okay? She doesn't know I've nominated her, but you know, she did agree to do it on the telephone one day. She wanted to do something, and I asked about that. She said she would be happy to do that, and so she will get a letter probably in the next month and find out that she's on there. I believe that's all that I have at this point. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Thank you.